Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about an important technique that might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, when to Riichi versus Dama. I'll firstly summarize the theories that I mentioned in many Riichi strategy guides like Dina Chiba, and secondly, add on my own insights on what I find work best for me in my own games. This video will focus on situations where you can choose to either Riichi or Dama, and the situations that will make one choice better than the other. To begin with, why should you Riichi? Your hand gains a Yaku if you didn't already have one. The score might increase further with Ipatsu and Uradora. And additionally, your opponents might play more defensively or just fall altogether, which means that you have more chances to draw your winning tile, and are less likely to deal into your opponents, since some of them might have already quit the round. However, the trade-off is that Riichi will usually reduce your win rate by about 30% for good weights, and the win rate will drop even further for bad weights. This is because your opponents will also draw and keep tiles that may look dangerous, and won't deal those tiles into you that easily. Therefore, the potential increase in hand value should be worth the decrease in win rate to make Riichi worth it. So what's the base criteria on whether to Riichi a hand? According to Dina Chiba's Riichi Book 1, you should Riichi if at least one of the following conditions are met. Firstly, you should Riichi if your hand has a good weight. A good weight will be those shown over here, where you're waiting on multiple tiles of different types. On the other hand, a bad weight will mean those shown here, where both the number of types and the overall number of winning tiles are lower. There's therefore a lower chance of you drawing your winning tile or having it dealt in by other players. Next, you should Riichi if your hand has at least one hand other than Riichi. I'll show you some examples. So in example 1, you should Riichi on the pei because there is also no pinfu. In example 2, you should still Riichi on the pei because there is a red Dora in your hand. In example 3, note that there is a chance for 2-3-4 Sanshoku. However, you should still Riichi on the 1p because there is pinfu with his hand. You also don't want to take a measly one-hand hand if you Zimo on the 5M without declaring Riichi. For Chiitoitsu hands, note that the exact same guidelines apply. For examples 4 to 6 below, assume that 4p is the Dora. In all these examples, you should declare Riichi and discard the pei. In example 4, you are waiting on the Dora 4p. Declaring Riichi gives a minimum value of Mangan that can potentially go up to Haneman or even Baiman if you add in Zumo and Uradora. In examples 5 and 6, you have a red Dora and Tanyao respectively, so you should still declare Riichi because this hand can reach Haneman with Uradora. Next, you should Riichi if you are the dealer because people are more likely to respect the dealer and fall into a dealer Riichi to avoid the 1.5 times multiplier payment. Furthermore, if the round ends in a draw, the dealership will stay, so it will not affect other people's chances to be the dealer in the next few rounds. Now I believe the next point is situational, but you should Riichi if you can set a suji trap. A suji tile, as mentioned in my previous video, is that tile plus minus 3. For instance, if your discard pool has a 5p, people might throw the 2p thinking that it's safe, which will play into your suji trap if you're waiting on the 2p. However, note that this technique is less effective at higher ranks because people will start to use other defensive techniques besides suji, and it's also less effective on the tile used to declare Riichi. So think about it, if I declare Riichi on the 6M for example, it could be quite likely that I had 2-4-6M and I threw the 6M to bait the 3M, so just take note of this common trick. So far we've covered situations where you should Riichi, and now I'll cover some situations where you should Dama. Firstly, you should Dama if your hand has a bad weight. This happens when, number 1, you have a low number of winning tiles left. The cutoff here is when there are only 1 or 2 of your winning tiles remaining. Number 2, your hand is waiting on the expensive suit. So a suit is said to be expensive if only a few tiles of that suit have been discarded so far. A common reason why this occurs is that someone is playing Honitsu of that suit. So use this image as an example. You can see that Sozu is a cheap suit and the other 2 suits are expensive suits. Therefore, it will not be ideal to Riichi while waiting on a Pinzu or Manzu tile. Next, you should Dama if your hand is waiting on a genbutsu tile, which translates to a safe tile. This example is also from one of my recent games. Note that I can choose to declare Riichi or Dama on the 2M, but I choose to Dama since my winning tiles of 3S and 6S are both safe tiles of the player who declared Riichi, which are likely to be discarded by other players. Sure enough, the player on my right immediately discarded my winning tile thinking that it was a safe tile. Next, you should Dama if your hand is big enough. There are 2 major cut-off points where you should consider Dama over Riichi. Firstly, if your hand is a Haneman without Riichi and already has a Yaku, it's almost definitely a Dama. And secondly, when your hand is above 340 fu, it's usually a Dama. Now if you're wondering why the second situation is a Dama, that's because your hand value stops doubling after every hand beyond 340 fu. So it's usually correct to Dama in order to increase your win rate, unless you need the extra points very badly. Finally, you should Dama if there are many possibilities to improve the hand. This usually occurs when it is before turn 8 in the game. and there are either more than 5 kinds of tiles that can improve your weight or scores, or at least one kind of tile that can improve your score by 3 hand in one step. So here's a useful example to illustrate this point. Here, you could Riichi on the 5M, but the correct play here according to theory is actually to Dama and discard the 5S instead. You may be wondering why. That's because there are many types of tiles you can draw to increase both the hand value and the number of winning tiles, all in one step. Now that I've covered all the theory from Daiichi, I want to discuss some of my personal insights that might deviate slightly from Daiichi's teachings. After all, Riichi Book 1 is just a guideline, and in your actual games, you should adapt according to the situation. However, it's still important to know the fundamentals before you start deviating. These are just what I feel works best for me as a player, and things I hope might help you guys out in your games as well. Firstly, for Chiitoitsu tenpai, try to Dama until you can Riichi and wait on an honor tile that is once or twice discarded. Mini Statistical Mahjong Strategy Guide has analyzed the statistics from high-level games, and this also supports my viewpoint. Secondly, if my hand is waiting on the expensive suit, but it's a good weight, I will still Riichi and hope to Zumo, which is different from what I mentioned earlier from Daiichi. Basically, the less likely people will discard my winning tile, the more I should Riichi. And this most commonly applies when I'm waiting on the Dora tile or a Dora Soba tile, which also means the tile next to the Dora. Thirdly, I will Riichi on a 3-sided weight even if I'm in furiten. The most common example of this is the Sanwen-chan weight, as shown here. I prefer to just Riichi here because there is a high chance that I will Zumo my winning card if it is a 3-sided weight. Next, if you want to counter Riichi into someone else's Riichi, do so for a non-dealer if your hand is at least 2 hand on a good weight, and do so for the dealer if your hand is at least 3 hand on a good weight. If your hand does not have a good weight or does not meet the minimum threshold, I will just fold. Next, if there are 2 Riichis, the best thing to do is to be a spectator and watch them self-destruct by feeding each other. However, if your hand is good and your weight is also good, then jump in and declare Riichi as well. This was also mentioned in Mini Statistical Mahjong Strategy Guide. Finally, if you're behind in score and you're in the south round, Riichi every hand that you otherwise Dama and pray for Ipatsu, Tsumo or Uradora. The idea is that when you fall into the ditch, you have to be ferocious and fight back, instead of just accepting a slow and painful defeat. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you want to see more of such videos, do leave a like and subscribe. It does help a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Bye bye.